basically you're placed in as if you're in a job, okay? And that's no different for this one. So the thing is, you would have done the previous virtualization subject. So as you know, the scenario is that now they're happy with your virtualization for servers and all that kind of stuff, but they want to add additional features, which is the desktop virtualization to it. Okay, so what we're saying is this is going to be a little bit easier than the previous one in the sense that it follows the same scenario, but if you look at it, it basically, so the scenario, the background is pretty much exactly the same. The scenario is pretty much the same in the sense you work for IT Works, but the company that's needing your help is Earthy's Confectionery, and that they've they've heard of your, they've obviously through the assessment 1, you're demonstrating the benefits of desktop virtualization. So as part of that, you're doing the proof of concept. But now we are going to, so that's the proof of concept, which is assessment 1. But the second part of it is assessment 2. All right, so guidelines. So if we actually, so this is probably where it starts. Organizational desktop virtualization problems. So basically, one of the problems is that if we actually go out and buy an individual device, a full desktop, it's going to cost at least $2,000 per device. That's obviously, that's for the box with the CPU, RAM, hard drives, or the solid state hard drives, and monitor, and all those kind of things. Okay, so that's actually, and that needs to be replaced pretty much every 5 years. It's a very expensive cycle. So it's up between $1,000 and $2,000. Most of their storage, compute memory, and networking resources remains unutilized and wasted. With the advent of COVID-19 and a shift to remote work, deploying, managing these the remote devices has become a challenging. VPN usage can complicate the difficult and be complicated and difficult for some users. So basically, if we had a full device and we had to log on from VPN at home, it's very complicated for some users because more users are using VPN now because they're working from home. Okay, basically that's the problem. Many members of the sales department frequently travel off-site as well and to things. We knew this from before when we talked about VPN in the previous Cert 4 subject. Security is a concern. If a device is lost or stolen, the sensitive data could be exposed. While backups are in place, they might not be up to date, potentially resulting in loss of critical data. Users' dependency on specific devices creates issues if the device is damaged, lost, or unavailable. So basically, think about it. If I have a laptop, if that breaks, that's pretty much the whole desktop gone, isn't it? The whole desktop, including all the apps I need to use, all the settings I configure, are gone. And also, it could be lost, it could be damaged, it could be infected with malware, but there's and other problems like like let's say hard drive, solid state hard drive just fails, or the motherboard is fried. I'm sure that's happened to a lot of people with laptops these days. So, and other issues, if the device is left at home or work, users cannot access their work environment and applications, leading to inconsistency of desktop environment. Some limitations. So your solution must be initially on-premise. So what we're learning about with the VMware Horizon, that's all on-premise, isn't it? On your local private cloud. So on-premise. Okay, you understand that, what the meaning of that, right? You're doing the subject with Prem and Joe, cloud subjects. Yeah. Okay. So you should know what on-premise means. Okay. Yeah. On their location. So obviously, so hopefully you understand it's a bit of a game we're playing. Yeah. You're like a student. You want to give me the right information so I can, and I'm the teacher. I want to see you give me the right information so I can tick you off. But I don't want to make it too hard for you, too complicated for you. You don't want to deal with things that's outside of the scope of the project. So we want to make it as tight and small, and only the things we need to consider are the things we want you to we want to mark and tick you off for. Okay, so don't go crazy in the sense that this is for assessment purpose, not for a real life deployment. Okay, so in a real life deployment, you know that there's millions more little details that we have to sort out, don't we? This is a written. It's a bit like you got the plan from your virtualization subject before. Now you have to take that plan and modify it. Okay, so basically the easiest way to do this is to take that plan and modify it. Okay, so you can see the task 1 is assessing the current servers, and the servers are the same ones that's in the previous subject. You can see this, it's the same hardware, virtual guests, etc., etc. Okay, so very similar. The 2 is analyzing the business requirements. So we just talked about the problems. So let's have a look at the questions. Okay, so task 1, assess the current network and server infrastructure. Review the organizational virtualization guidelines, organizational desktop virtualization problems, and current virtualization summary section. So that's what we sort of looked at just before. And now, 5 major problems. Okay, what, with the information you've been provided to you in the scenario, identify 5 major problems with the existing network setup. So concentrate on problems that can associated with virtualization, or where virtualization can solve the problem, and more specifically where desktop virtualization. Okay, so obviously you can see that this is similar to what we did in the previous one, right? But the key thing is it's to do with the desktop virtualization. So again, that goes back to these issues here, isn't it? So these are some, okay, and from the other things you can maybe think of a few others, okay. But the key thing is you got to explain why is it a problem. The effects on productivity, so like people being able to do their work. The effects on security, that's an important one, because obviously if we take files on a physical device and we go to somewhere, that physical device has the files on them and could be lost, couldn't it? Yeah. But if we are working from a virtual desktop, there's nothing stored on the actual end device, is there? Okay, for example. Business continuity, so basically how can the business continue to operate if something like that happens, okay? So again, very similar idea. So this is the general problems with virtualization. So this really comes from your previous assessment, okay? And now this is specific problems with the desktop virtualization. Okay, so you get me, Roman? Yeah. Okay, so what you know how you did this assignment in the other subject? You remember that assessment? Yes, you had these 5 problems, okay? Yeah. Yeah, single points of failure, all those kind of things, okay? Yeah, so those are the same problems here for this 5, okay? So you can just transfer those ones you had from that assignment into here. But now, this is 3 specific problems for the desktop virtualization. And here's a limitation. I think that's pretty obvious, isn't it? We talked about the limitation. What is a limitation of the project? So that was from exactly what we read just before, isn't it? Okay. Analyze the current utilization of existing virtualization infrastructure and compare it with the virtualization specifications. Again, this is exactly the same as the previous one. So you just have to transfer what you did there into here. And now the business requirements. So now again, so basically this is to do with the business requirements. So the company, obviously now this is to do with how the company can make money, how the company can increase its business, can keep on doing business, and all those kind of things. Then there's this document, research, get the fundamentals right document. Okay, so that's a strategic plan. So if we look at the ICT strategic plan, that's this document. That's this strategic plan link. Okay, so that, if I click on that, it'll open up. Come on. Let me. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so it's not everything. Okay, it's not everything in that. It's not everything in that document. So if you look at this, it says get the foundations right, page 21 to 26. So again, like I said, I'm trying to make it as easy as possible. So you don't have to read the whole document. I just want you to read a specific document, 21 to 20. Sorry, what was that? 21 to 26. And if we look at this 20, oh, that's not even 21, that's 13. It's actual 21 in the sense it's this 21 here, okay? Get the foundations right. So it's about looking at this and to 26, which is here, which is just before this part. So read that. So that's what it's saying. Have a read of that and identify one statement, just one statement that is related to efficiency, and one statement that's related to reliability, and just put in your own words, explain it. Okay, so research that and identify one statement that relates to efficiency and one that relates to reliability, and explain it and basically what it means. Okay, so it should be relatively straightforward. Explain how the use of desktop virtualization will address this efficiency, this reliability requirement. So if I were you, I'll look at all the things that could be there and identify the one that you can explain the best. Okay, that you can explain the best with this question. So now it's instead of how in the previous one we assessed VMware vSphere versus Hyper-V, this one we're not. Oh, you've done that already. Okay, so what we're doing is we're looking at desktop virtualization software. We talked about Citrix, DAS, Desktop as a Service, and VMware Horizon, which is what we're learning about in the subject, okay? So, and basically we need to complete the table A and B, and table C, and your final recommendation, and you put an email in, a bit like what we did before. But now getting back to what is that one, that's this link here, all right? And basically, if we look at this document again, we're trying to make it easy instead of you going out looking for everything on the internet. If we give you this one, hopefully it allows you to find the answers relatively quickly, okay? So if we look at, you just have to look at it. It's a comparison. You can see there's some tables for comparison, some components, etc., etc. Okay, so obviously this is your job now to go look at it, and then once you've looked at it, okay, insert your work here. Okay, so this is where software requirements. What software do they need underpinning, right? So remember, for Horizon we need the Active Directory, we need the database. What's a SQL server, etc., etc. So that's the kind of stuff here. So now the minimum hardware requirements. It's again, what CPU do we need, what RAM we need, what storage we need, etc. Okay, I think that's all in that document. And now, if we're talking about the features and functions, we're looking at what hypervisor it can use. Okay, what connection broker, front end system. And obviously you're probably thinking, what? That's a lot of information, but the key thing is all that information is in here. Okay, so even though there's a lot of detailed information in here, but if we look at here, desktops, yeah, look at that, it supports multiple hypervisors. Okay, so that's hypervisors. And I think components, the hypervisor, the provisioning technology, the front-end systems, which one to choose. So basically, pretty much all your answers are in here, okay? Somewhere, okay, with those kind of things. So some things you have to research. For example, if we're talking about, so some things you have to research, but the most of the things is going to be in that document, okay? So now the plan and propose your virtualization infrastructure. So remember what you did in the the previous assignment. You take that as a starting point. Now you adjust it to include desktop virtualization. So a lot of it would be exactly the same as your previous one. For example, yeah, where you're going to store the shared storage, the different networks, etc., etc. But what else do you need now? What other services do you need? What other components do you need? You know, the number of ESXIs, the number of hosts, and the amount of shared storage, is that enough now to include desktop virtualization as well? So maybe you have to expand that, okay? But the sections are pretty much the same. You are to identify all the number of guest operating systems. So that comes from your previous one straight away. You are to identify the physical servers that you can use. Again, that comes from your previous subject straight away. And you need to allow for 100% growth of guest VMs, including the desktops. Okay, your solution must ensure minimal downtime with each requirement in task 1 and task 2. You need to explain how the proposed design will address those requirements. Okay, and then obviously same thing, virtualization design. All of these things should be in the report. Okay. And then developing a deployment plan. That's, again, when we do things, when we do this, when we do that, what's the order we do it in, how long you think it's going to take, and then the service downtime, etc. Okay. Okay. How would you monitor the progress? Again, that's from your previous one, wasn't it? So how would you review the changes? So you can see it's not as big as the previous assignment, and a lot of it comes from the previous assignment. The key thing is you have to take your design and adjust it. Yes, scale it out. If it was well designed in the first place, it should be scalable to add more hosts, more storage, etc., etc., to actually accommodate all of these things. Some things are just more service, more physical service as hosts, obviously. Because you're not just virtualizing the servers now, you're virtualizing the desktop, okay? And the storage definitely increase that. But what about the other components? Like you need the Horizon server, you need the SQL database. Remember what I said, that ideally shouldn't be on the first one, same computer. Also, are they going to be physical machines? Probably not. Probably could be virtualized servers, okay? In the ESXi environment. Just think about that, and same thing as what we did before. Show me your design, and we'll discuss it. And obviously, if there's areas for improvement, we'll talk about it, and hopefully you can fix it before you write everything up. Okay. All right. So that's pretty much it. You can see the second one is not as hard as the previous one because it takes a lot of things from what you've done previously and just allows you to readapt this design. So you're still starting from the same point, but just imagine this is a sort of like a multiverse, and this multiverse, instead of you going forward and doing the whole plan for B, but even if you did, it could be just that I want you to improve your plan to add desktop virtualization, if you want to think of it like that, okay? So like the customers come back to you after your initial design and said, we love your plan. Perfect, but now we want to expand the project. We want to expand it to include virtualization. Now you have to adapt your plan, okay? So that's more. Oh, not just that, but we just realized that this is so good that we want to just add different features now, okay? So that's, if you want to put it in a scenario, that's just take that as your scenario, okay? All right, so that pretty much finishes our tour of the visualization, so assessment 2.